This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome aboard. The machinery of government is grinding again now that the longest government shutdown in history is over with. Reporter Chris Van Cleve gets us started from the nation's capital.
As all national parks and Smithsonian museums are reopening to visitors, the 42 million Americans who receive food assistance should get payments in the next day or so. And the White House says government employees, including air traffic controllers, should start getting back pay as soon as this weekend.
Thank you.
In Houston, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem personally handed out $10,000 bonus checks to TSA officers who worked without pay for 43 days.
So how are things at the airport? Correspondent Gabe Gutierrez.
It's not like flipping a switch, and airlines are still not operating at full capacity, and that is contributing to more than 600 flight cancellations across the U.S. already. And in a letter to employees, American Airlines saying it could be a few days before things get back to normal.
Experts say the shutdown cost the economy $50 billion a week. The Trump administration rolling out new messaging on affordability. As a new poll shows, nearly 1/4 of us live paycheck to paycheck. Vice President Vance says getting home prices under control is high on his to-do list.
Under the Biden administration, the price of a new home literally doubled in 4 years. Under the Trump administration, housing and rent prices are up about 1% to 2%. So again, we inherited a disaster. We're very mindful of the fact that there's a lot of work to do, but I think that we've made great progress.
The White House floating 50-year mortgages to help foster home ownership. The median price for an existing home in this country right now is north of $400,000. Verizon is cutting 15,000 jobs. The Wall Street Journal says those cuts are the largest ever for the telecommunications company and are set to take place next week. Breaking news from war-torn Ukraine. Russia today bombed Kyiv with hundreds of drones and missiles. Correspondent Raf Sanchez.
This was a massive attack on the Ukrainian capital. Authorities there say Russia filled the sky with drones to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses and then pummeled the city with missiles. And it's really a stark reminder that the president's efforts to negotiate an end to the war seem to be going nowhere.
The aerial assault left 4 dead and 20 injured in the Ukrainian capital. The Pentagon is gearing up for Operation Spear. It's a stepped-up military campaign against narco-terrorists inside Venezuela.
The Pentagon's stated reason for the buildup in the Caribbean is to go after drug cartels, to counter narcotics. But President Trump told Norah O'Donnell on 60 Minutes that Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro, his days as president are numbered.
Eleanor Watson with CBS News. The next migrant crackdown in this country might take place in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Customs and Border Protection agents could arrive in Charlotte as early as this weekend. Details of the operation haven't been disclosed. Both the sheriff's office and the police say they haven't been asked to assist and in any case don't have the authority to enforce federal immigration laws.
Christopher Cruz reporting the Justice Department is moving to stop California from using its newly approved congressional map in next year's midterms. The voter-approved referendum could give Democrats a net gain of 5 seats in the House. The DOJ accuses California of unconstitutional racial gerrymandering. Governor Newsom says the move was made in response to Texas adopting GOP-favored maps. A powerful storm is pummeling the fire-ravaged Pacific Palisades in Southern California. It's called an atmospheric river, and it's expected to dump a month's worth of rain in a span of just a few days. This man lives east of L.A. in Forest Falls.
The place here is so incredibly beautiful and wonderful that the risks are worth it. You have to be that kind of crazy to be able to stay here.
Forecasters are predicting landslides and mudslides in the same areas that were devastated by wildfires near nearly a year ago. A new study finds listening to music may help older adults protect against cognitive decline. Researchers spent a decade studying 10,000 people age 70 and up in Australia. They found those who listened to music the most reduced their risk of dementia by nearly 40%. Another study shows eating lots of ultra-processed food can increase your risk of developing colon cancer.
When you increase from 3 servings up to 10 or more servings a day, the risk of having a precancerous polyp in the colon increased from 3% to 5%. Foods like sodas, which could include diet sodas, packaged foods, snacks, ready-to-eat meals.
CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder. Let's talk faith, or the lack thereof. U.S. faith levels have plummeted to their lowest levels on record. A just-released Gallup poll finds fewer than half of all Americans say religion is an important part of their daily lives. That's a 17% drop from a decade ago. Only Greece, Italy, Poland, Chile, and Turkey saw larger declines in religiosity the past 10 years. Texas A&M is limiting classroom discussions on gender and race. Correspondent Michael Wallace.
University regents unanimously agreed to ban any courses from advocating race or gender ideology or topics related to sexual orientation or gender identity without a campus president's approval. The rule tightening comes after Republican politicians in Texas accused public universities of indoctrinating students with liberal ideas about race and gender.
Texas A&M fired a professor recently for teaching that there were more than 2 genders. For the first time in Major League Baseball history, both the American and National Leagues have repeat MVPs.
Ohtani has done it again!
LA Dodgers two-way superstar Shohei Ohtani won the award in the National League, while New York Yankees slugger Aaron Judge took home top honors in the American League. The win is the 4th overall for Ohtani and his 3rd straight. Judge has won 3 MVPs. He's just the 4th Yankee to ever do that. Still to come on the Noon Report for a Friday. Vehicles vandalized near Rochester. Deer season starts tomorrow, and Shapiro blasts Dems for shutdown vote.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. The weekend is upon us. It starts okay, but it doesn't quite go that well thereafter. Forecast details are coming up. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
All right, so then, thank you, Kevin. Let's check the stories making news where you live. Former Bradford County, Pennsylvania District Attorney Chad Salzman back behind bars today after spending more than 2 years in prison for sexually assaulting female victims that he had represented in court. That abuse happened at his private law office in Towanda before he was elected DA in 2020. Salzman's incarceration is due to a couple of parole violations. He was just released from custody back in April. A vehicle vandalism spree is turning heads in Monroe County, New York. 5 suspects are in custody today after police say they broke into more than 100 vehicles in the suburbs east of Rochester Thursday morning. Windows were smashed and personal items were stolen.
Caught me by surprise, I'll tell you that.
Makes you feel a little scared that something like this could happen.
The vandals targeted cars in the towns of Penfield and Parrington, as well as the village of Fairport. Police say if you have valuables in your vehicle, do not leave them in plain sight.
Nobody should have to be a victim. Nobody should have to worry about stuff getting stolen from their vehicle, but unfortunately it does happen, and it's an increasing trend.
Some of the ransacked cars had their registration and insurance cards stolen. The suspects, all 5 of them, were caught in the same vehicle while trying to elude authorities. They smashed into a tree during a police pursuit. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is blasting the 8 Democrats in the U.S. Senate who crossed party lines and supported a GOP spending bill to end the government shutdown. Shapiro tells ABC 27 the Dems caved too soon on reining in healthcare costs.
So when you say we're going to fight to reduce those costs, we're going to get a subsidy to reduce your healthcare costs, and then you leave with nothing? I mean, to me, that's unacceptable. If you're going to fight the fight, if you're going to be at the table, as I was here as governor of Pennsylvania, you'd better get something for it.
So you don't think they fought hard enough?
Look, I'm not a U.S. senator. I don't have a vote down there. But if you say you're going to hold out till you reduce healthcare costs and you ultimately cave and don't reduce healthcare costs, that to me is an L.
That to me is an L, says the governor. L as in loss. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman was one of the most consistent Democrats to vote to end the shutdown. He backed the Republican plan each of the 15 times that it came up for a vote. Senator Fetterman continues to recover after falling on his face yesterday. Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, according to a spokesperson, the Maverick Democrat was on a morning walk near his Braddock, PA home when he got lightheaded and fell face first. Hospital test revealed he suffered a flare of ventricular fibrillation, and he was kept in the hospital to allow doctors to fine-tune his medication regimen. In an online post, Fetterman thanked EMTs, doctors, and nurses who came to his aid, and even joked about the minor facial injuries he suffered, saying, quote, "If you thought my face looked bad before, wait until you see me now." Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Loves a sense of humor. Thank you, Mark. A deadly chain of events yesterday following a shoplifting incident in Gates, New York, not far from Rochester. A 33-year-old man was struck and killed by a vehicle on Interstate 390 while trying to flee police after robbing an Aldi's store.
As the officers responded to the area, they were provided some suspect information and a description that he was carrying a book bag. We're still determining how much the value was, but it was multiple meat products that were stolen from the location.
Gates Police Chief Rob Long says the suspect was spotted on the Lyle Avenue overpass above I-390 shortly after that robbery.
As the officer turned around to go stop the suspect ran down the embankment and onto Route 390. My officer then exited his patrol vehicle, was able to go around the guardrail, looked down onto 390, and unfortunately saw as the suspect was struck by a motor vehicle.
The officer in pursuit of that suspect immediately jumped into action, traversing traffic on the busy highway, and tried to save that shoplifter's life.
I watched the body camera in this case. I would not expect anything else from this officer. He did an amazing job. The officer, without hesitation, ran out, waited for the traffic so that he could get out onto the road safely, went out and started CPR, rendering life-saving aid to the suspect.
Despite those efforts, the suspect did not survive. The deceased individual was well known to police. A not-for-profit in Oswego County, New York, is doing all it can to ensure kids do not go hungry, especially on the weekends when school is not in session. These volunteers with Aaron's Angels tell Spectrum News.
You don't have to know a hungry child to be able to do something about it.
Food is just like the top line, right? Because if they're feeding their body, then they feel better about themselves.
1 in 5 children in New York face food insecurity on a daily basis. Experts say for many of these kids, the only meals they get are the ones they get at school. Some of this year's hottest Christmas gifts are getting extra attention in Pennsylvania long before they reach store shelves. Family Life's Brian Query.
Hundreds of stuffed animals filled the lobby of Pennsylvania's Labor and Industry Building this week. The state inspects a sample of every stuffed toy sold in the Commonwealth, no matter where it's made. Labor and Industry Secretary Nancy Walker said every toy goes through rigorous testing. Once toys pass inspection, they're handed off to the Department of Human Services, which distributes them to families identified through local assistance offices. The state tested more than 1,000 stuffed toys this year, a 45% increase over last holiday season. Brian Query, Family Life News.
And here I thought it was Santa's elves that did the testing. Anyway, what do I know? Thank you, Brian. Deer season starts tomorrow, folks. In New York, hundreds of thousands of hunters will be taking to the woods with the hopes of bagging a buck or two. The season runs through December 7th. You can find deer hunting safety tips online at dec.ny.gov. That's dec.ny.gov. Motorists encouraged to watch out for deer as well, especially at dawn and dusk. They tend to be a bit skittish this time of year. We've got sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, it was a big night for rookie Trayvon Henderson as he rushed for 2 scores and caught a pass for another touchdown. The first-place New England Patriots knocked off the New York Jets 27-14. The Pats currently the best record in the NFL at 9-2. On the ice, Buffalo was in Denver to take on the Avs, and it was too much Martinikas as he scored 2 goals and dished out 2 assists. Colorado doubled up the Sabres 6-3. For Buffalo, it is their 5th straight loss. The Islanders were in Vegas to face the Golden Knights, and New York won it in overtime. Heineman, Schaefer, Barzal, and Peugeot all scored for the Isles. They won it 4-3. Elsewhere, the Kings were overtime winners 4-3 over the Maple Leafs. Dallas whitewashed Montreal 7-zip. The Senators outlasted the Bruins 5-3. Detroit doubled up Anaheim 6-3. Florida won by that same 6-3 score over the Caps. The Blue Jackets edged the Oilers 5-4. Calgary shut out the Sharks 2-0. And the Kraken skated past Winnipeg 5-3. To the NBA, Toronto knocked off Cleveland 126-113. Phoenix blew out Indiana 133-98, and the Hawks by 10 over Utah 132-122. And Major League Baseball handed out their MVP awards yesterday and made history in the process, and nobody was surprised. For the first time ever, both leagues have back-to-back MVPs. And you know what that means. Aaron Judge won in the American League. Shohei Ohtani won it in the National League. For Judge, it's his 3rd MVP award. Ohtani has now won the award 3 straight seasons and has 4 overall. That is a look at sports.
All right, they were certainly fun to watch this year. Thank you, Randy. Still to come, the Capital Connection crew talking shop on all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg. Kevin Williams calling for a mixed bag weather-wise this weekend. And at the end of the broadcast, Christian College sets scoring record in women's basketball.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. One of the top Christian worldview stories of 2025 is the ongoing worsening situation for Christians in the nation of Nigeria. Now, at the end of October, President Trump designated Nigeria a country of particular concern. He also called on members of Congress to offer recommendations about combating the persecution there. Also, the State Department put Nigeria back on its persecution watch list. Secretary of State Marco Rubio threatened Nigerian officials with financial penalties, visa bans, and aid cuts if steps were not taken to curb anti-Christian violence and meet U.S. counterterrorism standards there. And all of this, which happened at the end of what was the worst year on record for Christian persecution in Nigeria, came as an answer to prayers and an answer to actions that were taken. Well, the question now is whether or not the Nigerian government will indeed take meaningful steps to rein in the radical Islamic groups that are responsible for the increasing violence there. The violence in Nigeria is driven by jihadists from radical Islamic groups, Boko Haram, the Islamic State West Africa province, and especially since 2009, militant Fulani herdsmen. The Nigerian government blames the violence on land disputes between herdsmen and farmers, and the Biden administration blamed the land disputes on climate change. These are ridiculous explanations and ignore the common elements of the conflict, namely that the persecutors are always Muslim and that the victims are always Christian. And Western media has also largely ignored what is one of the most significant human rights crises of our day. But other voices have become louder and more clear. In a speech before the UN General Assembly on September the 23rd, President Trump said to world leaders, quote, "Let us protect religious liberty, including for the most persecuted religion on the planet today, Christianity. Christians around the world have to continue to appeal to heaven on behalf of our brothers and sisters in Nigeria. We must pray that God would strengthen them, that the gospel would go forward, even impacting the hearts of those who are persecuting believers for their faith in Jesus Christ." Each and every day, Breakpoint brings clarity to stories like these, stories that matter while cultivating confidence in what is true. If Breakpoint has helped you and your family make sense of this cultural moment as a Christian, please make a year-end gift to keep it on the air. Right now, thanks to a generous $500,000 challenge, every single gift before the end of the year will have double the impact. You can give today at colsoncenter.org/November. That's colsoncenter.org/November. And for a version of this commentary that you can print out and share with others, go to colsoncenter.org/radio.
Thank you, John Stonestreet. Weatherman Kevin Williams next.
Here is your Family Life weather forecast for this afternoon. We'll have clouds and occasional sunshine. High temperatures in the 40s. Partly cloudy tonight, low temps mid-20s to the low 30s. Tomorrow, some sunshine for a while, then cloudy. Rain and rain showers progress from west to east through the area later in the afternoon and at night. High temps in the 50s with a breeze. Then a blustery, colder day Sunday, rain showers and snow showers. Temperatures falling. We'll spend Sunday afternoon in the 30s and lower 40s.
Thank you, Kevin. It's Friday, the 14th of November, and this is the Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues. At the state capitals, they are, as always, Michael Geer with the Pennsylvania Family Institute and Jason McGuire with New York Families. But better late than never is what they say, Michael. 135 days past the due date. It looks like finally there's some progress to report on the PA state budget. What can $50 billion buy? We're about to find out. Of course, for our audience, the big question is recreational marijuana included in that final deal? What say you, Mr. Geer?
Well, the conversations that we've had up on the Hill does not look like that is part of the final deal, so that's good news, certainly, because Governor Shapiro and the Democratic caucus in the House have been pushing very hard for that, and some Republicans as well. That's a bullet that has been dodged, we think, in this budget cycle. But again, sometimes there are these backdoors and things and deals that are made that we don't find out about until days later. So we'll keep a watch on that. But it's certainly good news that after 135 days that the legislature seems to be moving to open things up here in Pennsylvania.
Now let's hope next time they do it a little more prudently and that budget adoption. Let's move on to Albany, Jason. Big news last week. Elise Stefanik formally announcing her candidacy. It happened soon after the off-year election. Nobody in New York needs to be told twice. It's been almost a quarter century since New York has elected a Republican to statewide office, not just the governor's office, any statewide office. It's been over a quarter century. How much of an uphill battle will this be for her against Governor Hochul next year?
Well, there's no question that for any Republican candidate, it's always a tough slog here in the Empire State. But I will say this for Representative Stefanik, she's already coming in with a much higher name ID and better financed than any candidate really in recent history, going back almost 25 years now. And we're excited to see what's going to happen here in New York with really it's going to be probably a hotly contested election going into 2026.
Yeah, and of course, in Pennsylvania, they got another gubernatorial race there. Governor Shapiro, he is going to be tough to beat in the Keystone State. He's got a book out coming out, and but there's a couple Republicans that may want to take him on. One, Stacey Garrity, state treasurer. The other, State Senator Doug Mastriano, who ran against him last go-around. Do you think it's good for Pennsylvania Republicans for there to be a primary battle, or would it be better for them if the party just settled on one candidate, Garrity or Mastriano?
Well, it's interesting to think about this race coming up because of Shapiro having presidential ambitions. You mentioned the book that he's writing, and so we think maybe he'll take his eye off the ball a little bit, be thinking about 2028 so much that the gubernatorial race is going to be second fiddle for him, and maybe he'll be a little soft on that. But Doug Mastriano ran against Josh Shapiro at a time when Josh Shapiro was more likely to be defeated by him as a candidate, and yet Mastriano was beaten badly. And now with Shapiro as an incumbent and a popular incumbent, that would make it a tall order, I think, for Mastriano. Stacey Garrity has an uphill climb. She has a Republican endorsement, but that is a race that we'll be watching.
All right. Well, let's talk about Governor Hochul a little more in New York, Jason. She has until the end of the year to decide whether she'll veto or sign the physician-assisted suicide bill, which was passed in the state legislature back in June. Is it true that there are no residency requirements in this legislation, meaning someone from another state who wishes to end their life could come to New York State, make the Empire State sort of a death destination for those who are committed to this practice, this heinous practice of physician-assisted suicide?
Yeah, it is true. There was no residency requirement in the legislation. If signed into law,
law, you would see that. You would see people come from other places, and we could become a tourist destination for some of these suicide ventures. And so we are concerned about that. It's similar to what we have seen with the issue of abortion in our state. You can come here from anywhere, and we'll pay for it, we'll fund it, and you can have your abortion here, even if you're coming from a state that is more restrictive on the issue.
Yeah. Are attitudes changing about physician-assisted suicide like they have in just recent years with abortion as we learn more about it? And we look into Canada, for instance, where it's just like 4% of the overall death rate now is the result of physician-assisted suicide.
I think it is. Part of the role that we play here in New York is to try to slow things down enough until the culture can catch up with the realities of what is happening. And if you watch what happened in Canada, they're soon to announce that there have been 100,000 assisted suicide deaths there in that country. And legislators here, even during the voting period, many of them expressed concern over what was happening in Canada. So if the governor vetoes this, it buys more time for the culture to wake up to the grim realities of assisted suicide.
Yeah. Well, 10 years ago, Michael, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage in all 50 states. I still can't believe it's been 10 years. And this week, the High Court declined to revisit that case, Obergefell v. Hodges. Should they have at least looked at the merits of the case brought by Kentucky clerk Kim Davis?
Well, I think like the Roe versus Wade decision, Obergefell was kind of made up out of whole cloth, that there really is no constitutional mandate for legalization of so-called same-sex marriage. So they went too far, and I think the road back needs to happen. Whether or not this particular case was the one to do it is a question mark. A lot of people, court observers, including those who oppose same-sex marriage, saw this as not the case with the facts and the background that was one that the Supreme Court was going to take up. But I think eventually the court is going to have to look at this issue because I think Obergefell was wrongly decided.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that, Jason, with you. Does the court's decision not to revisit Obergefell, does that open the door to more persecution of Christian-owned wedding venues, cake bakers, photographers, and the like?
Well, I don't know if it opens the door more. I think it really leaves the door open to what's already been occurring. And we are hopeful that in years to come that it will eventually be overturned, but the right case needs to make it to the court first.
Well, both of you guys follow sports quite closely. We're all very into it. We talk about gambling on this program a lot. And I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Michael, I want to begin with you. This thing, it's called prop betting, where you can bet on just about anything. Is he going to throw a first down pass? Is he going to get a single? Will it be a ball or will it be a strike? Will he make the first shot of the game? You can bet on basically anything you want to in sports now. It seems to be the new norm, and it's gotten a lot of professional athletes in hot water, whether it's the NBA or the MLB. Fans of sports don't know if they can trust what they're seeing right now on the court or the field. When it comes to sports betting, and we look at these headlines, is there any getting that genie back in the bottle?
I'm not sure that there is. The long-standing legal prohibition on sports betting was in place in part precisely because of the corrupting effect and resulting distrust of the legitimacy of sports competition. When you consider how much money is at play, it's no surprise that that massive sum is bringing corruption. These are Pennsylvania statistics. 2024 saw nearly $8.5 billion wagered in legal sports betting. And then in that same year, just last year, how many dollars did Pennsylvanians lose? Over $500 million. Wow. So when you have that kind of money in there and tax dollars that are going to government coffers, it's kind of hard to know whether they can put this genie back in the bottle. And our sports and the well-being of Pennsylvanians is at stake and being harmed.
And this is one of those water cooler conversations, Jay. I've talked to so many people of faith, well-meaning Christians who will tell me that there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing unbiblical about me, wagering on a game or something. But if you would just talk about the dangers of that. First, is that true? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that true? And then secondly, what would be your advice to anybody who may be drawn to the allure of making that quick buck?
Sometimes I think believers look for specific Bible verses that expressly prohibit a certain action. And I think this is one of those issues. It's a little more difficult to find specific verses, but students of the scriptures will understand that there are themes, there are principles that run throughout the pages of the Bible, in which as you walk closer with Christ, you try to live by. Some of the principles we see regarding financial aspects and wealth in the scriptures deal with our appropriate ways to raise funds, industry, the work of our hands, investment, the money that we we put into different stocks or bonds or things we do, a business. And then the third thing has to do with inheritance and what we leave for those that come behind us. But the reality is it does not leave room for gambling. The principle in the Scriptures is that various forms of gambling are always spoken ill of in the Scriptures. And I think that's a principle that as believers we ought to say, then why mess with that? We ought to pursue the industry, the inheritance, the investment.
Yeah. So both of you would agree if you have a problem with this, an addictive nature, and you can't stop, get help now, soon, before it's too late. And that's all the time we have for this week's edition of Capital Connection. Been a lot of places, but if you want to learn more about the good work going on at the Pennsylvania Family Institute, Michael, where can they find you online?
PAFamily.org.
And New York Families doing a great work as well in New York State. Jay, what's your website?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Catch all our Capital Connection podcasts online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. We head into the weekend with prospects for dry conditions tonight and to start the day tomorrow. But alas, this too shall pass. Potent low pressure and a cold front will bring rain and showers later Saturday afternoon and night. Behind it, much colder air. Rain showers changing to snow showers with falling temperatures to call for Sunday. Here is the call for this afternoon, though. We'll have clouds and occasional sunshine. High temperatures in the 40s. Partly cloudy tonight, low temps mid-20s to the low 30s. Tomorrow, some sunshine for a while, then cloudy. Rain and rain showers progress from west to east through the area later in the afternoon and at night. High temps in the 50s with a breeze. Then a blustery, colder day Sunday, rain showers and snow showers. Temperatures falling. We'll spend Sunday afternoon in the 30s and lower 40s.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. And finally at noon, Amazing Grace, as in Grace College, a tiny Christian school in north central Indiana, has just set a women's college basketball scoring record. The Lady Lancers at Grace College pumped in 172 points in one game. How about that? They beat Ohio Christian Tuesday night, 172 to 91. Imagine that, scoring 91 points and still losing by over 80 points. The Lancers averaged more than 4 points a minute and broke the previous program record of 118 points before the end of the third quarter. Getting it done there. The Lady Lancers of Grace College in Winona Lake, Indiana. And that's our world. The world we live in. Friday, November 14th. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.